Welcome to Elixir Wizards, a podcast brought to you by SmartLogic, a custom web and mobile development shop based in Baltimore. My name is Sunday Mint, and I'll be your host. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Owen Bickford, and we are recording from EMPEX in Salt Lake City. Hey, Owen, how are you doing?
Hey, Sunday. I am doing great in this highly elevated state.
Yeah, the elevation is something to pay attention to. Today, we are joined by special guest Digit from SmartRent. Hey, Digit.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. We do 100% have to flag that this is the first Elixir Wizards episode we are recording, maybe in a long time, if ever, in person. So welcome.
Yes.
It is odd to be looking at you right now in person.
There's no delay. It's just happening in real time.
Oh my gosh, we can't say anything like you're on mute.
Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
It's like we've had blinders on our face this entire time, and we're just like lifting it now. Kind of wild. You just flew in?
Yeah.
Just got off the plane.
I landed about 15 minutes ago.
And then rolled over into this podcast setup. So how was the flight? Where were you flying from?
I am actually just moved to Portland, Oregon. And so I got back a couple months ago. I moved up there from Washington, and I've been enjoying it quite a lot. And flew in from Oregon. Not a bad flight, about an hour. Little bit of bumps over the mountains, but nothing too bad.
Cool. I feel like I just read something about Portland. I was looking up like the worst traffic ever in the country, and I feel like Portland was up there, but maybe it was Seattle. And
Seattle's pretty bad. I used to live in Seattle.
Okay.
The traffic there is pretty bad.
I could be totally quoting this wrong, but I think it's like LA, Seattle, and then the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area.
Yeah.
Which is, what I live and breathe.
I'm looking forward to my walkable city future, so I don't have to drive anywhere, and that's where I want to be.
Yeah, I live in Northeast Portland, and it is extremely walkable. I haven't owned a car in years, so I walk and bike everywhere, and the carless life is stress-free.
My list is getting so long now. I've got Kansas City, I've got Dallas, I've got Northeast Portland now, so...
Yeah, we got lunch with Amos today. Shout out Amos from Binary Noggin, and he's been on his Everyone Move to Kansas City trip right now, so which is fun. But luckily, we'll be talking to a lot of people today, or, this conference from a lot of places, and you get to interview all of them and find out their pros and cons for their city, which should be great. Yeah, I just finished having a nice 7-8 years of no car. It was glorious, but back to suburban life for me.
Yeah.
It'll be okay. I needed it, to go back to skating and just, house things. So here we are. Okay. So, we're here. You're doing the conference area. Is this the first one you've been to since ElixirConf, or did you go to?
Yes, I didn't go to Big Elixir was in between this one and one other one. I forget which one. But yeah, this is the first one I've been to since ElixirConf.
Mm-hmm. Me too. Owen,
I was at Big Elixir, yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Is there any particular talk you're super looking forward to hearing?
There's a couple. On the top of my list, though, Isaac's talk, I'm always interested into the weird corners of OTP that he digs into. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to reveal this time. I saw his talk about Zig at the last ElixirConf, which was phenomenal. And so I'm curious, as his background is super interesting to me, how he just kind of like stumbled into Elixir. And I think that's awesome. Right. So
yeah.
I'm always curious about his perspective on things.
For those listening 5 years in the future, what is DP?
I'm sorry, what?
You said you're super interested in DP?
Oh, OTP. Sorry.
OTP.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. Hopefully 5 years in the future, they know what that is.
Oh, there's more people who know what OTP is in the future.
Oh, wait. Pop quiz. What does it stand for?
Oh, please no.
It's like the Open Telephony Platform or something like that.
Open Telephony?
Yep.
Telephony?
I think that's right.
Telephony.
Oh my gosh.
That's
all
the
right,
one, yeah.
All right,
Open Telephony Platform.
We are absolutely exposing ourselves right now. Let's see.
It's definitely
I can't
telephony
type
platform.
The O. I'm getting an O. I'm getting an ITP. Come on, OTP. One-time password. No, not that one.
You gotta specify
OTP.
You gotta
one.
put Erlang
Oh, I don't
or
think
Ericsson.
I can say this one on air. Like literally, none of them are correct. Let's try Elixir. OTP. Elixir.
My money's on Open Telephony.
Telephony? I always have.
Telephony, I think,
I
is the way.
pronounce it correct after
Yeah.
I pronounce it wrong one time.
Right. It's one of those words you have to like do it wrong, and then third time is a charm.
This is embarrassing. Why is it so hard to
If
find?
you just type Erlang OTP, there's like a Wikipedia article that should be
Open Telecom Platform.
Telecom, not telephony. Okay. I was close.
So
Way
for
off.
all of our listeners who were just screaming the answer into the void that is their homes, I am so sorry for
It
you.
has something to do with
Well,
telephones.
Cool. So you said you're looking forward to Isaac's talk. Is it based on his talk from before? Or is it
No,
like...
I think it's something completely new.
Okay.
Some kind of feature that I'm not super familiar with in OTP. I'd have to reread the description again, but I saw that he was going to dig into some feature that he hasn't seen used often, and I'm already interested. I think it has to do with global state and testing and even uses of that in non-test environments. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then, of course, I'm excited for whatever Quinn is going to bring to her talk, because those are always fascinating.
And I'm also going to shout out Quinn right now. Quinn, no matter what you do, no matter what, you could have made the slides 5 seconds ago. It will still be brilliant.
Right.
For any future anxieties there might ever be about putting together a slide deck.
We should have a pull bet on how many quotes there will be in Quinn's talk.
How many
Oh.
quotes?
Over, under, or
But how many
something.
quotes are actually real quotes?
Well,
Oh, I would love somebody to do a talk where they just put in quotes and you have to figure out which ones are real and which ones aren't.
Gotta do research.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Where like the last slide is, okay, 50% of those quotes were not real. You all have been duped. Thank you. Goodbye.
pick up an answer sheet on the way out, and
right.
Oh, how fun would that be? Cool. I mean, I think this is one of the first times I've just done a one-day conference too. So that's kind of an interesting
I have
vibe.
never done a one day. I didn't even know that was a thing. Actually, I thought I've been very used to multi-day, multi-track. Like everything is just one track. Everybody's going to be in the same room for the whole time.
Do you know how much more relieving that is to not think about making any choices?
It means that there's no hallway track also, which like is an upside and a downside, I guess, because I end up in the hallway track in conferences when I'm in the same situation as you, where I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then I just end up talking to someone for 40 minutes.
Yeah, well, not to plug another podcast, but the hallway track of Elixir is always there. It is the Elixir Outlaws.
Right.
Mhm, mhm. Yep.
Yes. I know Amos will be here, and
I think somebody from every podcast will be here.
yes, that's true. Yes, I've spotted people.
Yeah, spot the podcaster. I think the
Should get
joke
hats.
is everyone has a podcast these days. Not in tech, just like everyone. Everyone started a podcast with their sister reviewing the latest Marvel movie, you know?
There's a podcast or live stream or YouTube channel for everyone that's going to be at the conference tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. So we mentioned at the top of the show that you're at SmartRent. How is that
Yes.
going?
Oh, great. I started at SmartRent a couple months ago, and it's been super fun. It's a really interesting application of Elixir. There's a lot of nerves, which is super fun. I get to work with Frank Hunleth basically directly, and so it's a lot of fun to work with someone who's really deep into the nerves ecosystem, and we're kind of applying it into smart home and smart apartment applications, and it's super fun. The way I stumbled across SmartRent is actually really funny. I moved into an apartment that had SmartRent in it,
No
and I had no
way.
clue that it was Elixir. There was Elixir-based stuff, and I started poking at their app and making my own little interface for it, and I realized that I was interfacing with a Phoenix socket, and I was just like mind blown. I was like, oh, what is this company? And I looked it up.
You realized it was all your best friends.
Yeah, and I realized, oh, wow, there's a lot of people I know who work here. And they offered me a position to work on the firmware team, so that's where I work now. I'm a firmware engineer at SmartRent now. It's really fun.
Wow. What a great origin story. I just figured Frank had talked you into it or something.
I mean, half that, but also I went on Twitter and I was looking for a new position, and Frank reached out and said, hey, I have a cool team. Do you want to join? And I said, yeah.
Oh my gosh, how awesome.
What is SmartRent? So like you kind of hinted at this, but
Yeah.
what is SmartRent at the high level for
At
someone?
the high level, I'm trying to think of the best way to summarize this, basically installing smart home technology into rental properties, such as like apartment units or rental homes, or even college dorms, things like leak sensors, smart door locks so you can do access control for guests. We do parking management for knowing if parking spaces are open, all sorts of IoT-enabled properties, basically. And we've been working on a bunch of Elixir nerves-based stuff for door access control, so like the RFID tag into doors and things like that. That's going to be nerves-based. I've been working on a fancy Flutter UI touchscreen thing.
Yes.
I can't talk a lot about the details of it right now, but I'm super excited. That's
but we
Frank
could talk about Flutter, though, right?
We can talk about
You won't
Flutter.
make Sunday's day if you talk about Flutter.
Flutter is really cool, and I've been trying to make it talk to Elixir on a Nerves device, which has been really interesting.
Oh my God, you are at the intersection of everything I want to talk about right now.
Well, we can talk maybe off the air, but I
Okay.
can't speak too much about
That's
details.
fine.
Next
I mean,
time.
no, but generally speaking, I've been working in Flutter for the last year. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for every Elixir fan who's listening. It's just how it rolls. I've been working in Flutter for the last year, more than Elixir. And I think I know it better than Elixir right now.
It's really
maybe.
cool. I
It is
love
very
how
cool.
fast I could get a UI
Yes.
broken out. The most stressful part of anything software engineering to me is building a UI,
Mhm.
and Flutter just made it really easy, and
Yes.
it was super cross-platform, and it was super easy to get running on our prototype hardware, and it's just been a joy, honestly.
So I have not actually delved into Flutter yet. Is it like a framework with pre-built components? Is that kind of what you're getting?
it's a whole suite of tools for building UIs, mostly geared towards like smartphones. So it's a single code base it's in Dart. So that's the language it's in, which is a Google language.
Google made Dart.
Yeah, it is Google made, or I think they contribute a lot to Flutter as well. And then they made
Google
Dart.
also made Flutter.
I remember reading somewhere that they didn't make it, but
but like acquired it or something.
I don't know. They're definitely involved a lot.
Yeah, the reason
the
reason Flutter has been so useful in like the learning aspect for me is that Google is just so great at content creation.
Yeah.
That their widget of the week videos on YouTube,
Those are
their
so
books
good.
are so good.
Yep.
Like just the resources on it blew me away, and I picked it up faster than I've picked up anything.
Yeah.
That could
Absolutely.
maybe speak to where like I'm finally at a place in my life where I like learning things faster. But also I think it says something about how fast you can learn Flutter. I've also always wanted to talk about Flutter on the podcast. Not saying that's why we're talking about Polyglot this season, because I finally wanted to
Hey, segue.
It's a good topic.
No, I mean, yeah, like we talk about Elixir all day long, but I noticed at ElixirConf that we're all doing, stuff in other places, not taking credit for the season theme. That was Dan, yeah?
Yeah, that was Dan, yeah.
Yeah, Dan at SmartLogic. Shout out to Dan.
High five.
But I was actually really excited when I saw the season theme being Polyglot because I was just like...
It's a cool theme.
It's a cool theme, but, realistically, we don't just write Elixir.
No.
A lot of us don't. That is sweet. I'm so excited for you. I'm also excited, generally speaking, like in that world, because what drives me nuts about smart home stuff is how smart it is. Like, I want a dumb smart home. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I don't want it selling my data. I don't want somebody to be able to I want it off network. I want it to not be hackable. I want all of these things.
I totally get where you're coming from. I actually recently got a house in Portland. I did a big house purchase. That was a whole big stressor, but that's
we can
done
talk
now.
about that offline.
Oh yeah, and but I love it. It's been super fun. It's great to have a place of my own that me and my partner can just live our lives in. It's nice, and I've been investing into smart home stuff. Funny enough, and I totally agree with you. I went full build my own stack of smart home stuff. So I've been doing Home Assistant with Z-Wave devices, and it's on a separate router with a separate network, and it's super smooth. Even rigged up my garage door to it. It's so much fun. But yeah, I agree. Smart home stuff, the off-cloud stuff is really fun and really great. And I've been thinking about making a Flutter UI in Elixir and with this to build on top of that.
I mean, seriously, my house came with a smart screen that hooked up to the locks that had I don't know, it was always beeping. We ripped it out of the wall, but it really bothered me that we needed to call customer support to delete the users, the seller was still in it, weird. Kind of, and
they should have cleared that out before they
tried right in front of me. They tried right before my eyes, and they got rid of as many users as they could, but they really couldn't get it all. And I just hate the idea that you're beholden to smart stuff and the software really controls your life and your home security at that point. So, I was so 6-7 years ago, just so excited. Everything was Google Home and Assistant and Hue and everything. My stupid Google Nest uses aux heat when I tell it not to every other day.
One thing I've learned when working at SmartRent is all of the really good reliable hardware, because we have to deploy these things and then never have to touch them as much as possible. So if you're ever in the market for a new smart thermostat, the Honeywell T6, really good.
Okay. I mean, I might be. So you're working in Flutter, Elixir, and Nerves.
Yeah, Flutter, Elixir, Nerves, some C here and there because it's inevitable when working with Nerves, but it's a lot of fun. I love tasks that let me touch all different kinds of parts of the stack and all different things. Full system development is so much fun.
Does Flutter give you, like, what's the WebSocket support in Flutter?
So it's basically dependent on Dart, and so it's fully there. You can do WebSockets, you can do HTTP, you can do raw sockets if you want, raw TCP, UDP. Really everything. Dart's a really cool language, to be super honest. I have never touched it before, Dart, and so it's my introduction to Dart, and it's really cool. It's really well made, and funny enough, I think the person who helped design it was someone who, I'm super bad at names, but they wrote the Game Programming Patterns book, and then a book on building your own interpreter, crafting interpreters, I think it's called, and it was a super good language, and they're really good. Yeah, I'm so terrible at names.
Is it like Ben Nydstrom or something like that?
Sorry, I apologize to him for getting his name, but super smart.
I'm not positive that I have that right, actually.
Fantastic language, though. Great
While you're looking that up, so Dart, functional, object-oriented?
It's object-oriented. I would say it's closer to, it's like if you took the slider and at one end you put Java and at the other end you put JavaScript and then you like slid it to the middle where you kind of have loose types where you can kind of do like var equals. I don't know if Java has, I haven't written Java in like 5 years. I don't know if Java has those kinds of
probably for the best.
Bob Nystrom. Here we are.
Bob.
Sorry, Bob.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bob had a really phenomenal talk about Flutter. One of like those Google Keynote things that I remember just watching and being like, this makes so much sense. And I think I listened to him on a podcast. I don't remember what it might have been the Flutter podcast, where he talked about getting into game development and how he really wanted to get into game development and how he couldn't do that because they don't let you build games.
Yeah, that I could feel that. Yeah.
You were dabbling in some game stuff, right?
I do when I can. It's stressful because it's a lot of work. I think games are two of the hardest things I think you can engineer are distributed systems. But thankfully Elixir makes that easy. And games. Games are super hard to engineer, and I have huge respect to anybody who makes any game in any capacity. It's really hard. I've made 1/4 of a game for the multiple times for my entire life, yet to finish anything. It's just super hard. I'm hoping to actually start making small things as like a hobby and actually get it out there.
What's difficult about finishing a game?
There's just a lot to do. It's a lot of components. It's a lot of design. And I get lost along the way. Mostly I kind of go down this spiral where you end up polishing one tiny piece of the whole thing and not focusing on the bigger picture, which is just my downfall every time. And I really got to take some lessons on iterating faster on games. I do that with my other projects. Games for some reason, I just get locked into one section because there's just so many things you have to think about.
So what language stack is game development in for you?
For me, depending on the phase of my life you ask me, I've done a language called Hakes, which was really cool, and something called OpenFL, which was ActionScript, but compiles to C. Very strange, but a really cool stack. And then more recently, I did some Unreal Engine 4 stuff in college, so that was a lot of C++. And then really more recently, I've been learning a lot of Unity, so that's C#, maybe some lower level C++ if you're building lower level components, but mostly C#. So that's been fun. I've been learning Unity a lot more.
I think you tweeted recently that you were going to go real hard on Unity after this conference.
Yeah.
Should we hold you to that? Should we check in on you?
Maybe, yeah. No promises. I love giving Elixir talks, and I love the Elixir community. But I'm the kind of person I'll hop to all different technologies, all different languages. So I'll still be around, and I'll definitely be working on Burrito. But I'm also going to try and focus on some of my other projects.
Is Unity its own language, or is it like a framework?
Unity is a whole engine with a scripting layer with C#. There's also like a JavaScript layer. I wouldn't recommend that one. But the main stack of Unity is the Unity game engine, whatever art tools you want to pull in. There's a lot of plugins. And then C#.
Cool. Would that be communicating with Elixir in some way, or is it just kind of its own thing?
I've been thinking about using Elixir for building DSLs to generate content for Unity. So imagine using Elixir and macros and writing a little CLI tool in Elixir that lets you write dialogue trees or dialogue decisions for a game in a DSL where you could say, like, if the choice is this, then do this, trigger this function, or say this line of dialogue, and then spit out like a compiled file that Unity can read and parse and run. I've been toying with Elixir to write a DSL for generating something called basically just 3D shaders. So I've been writing a DSL to generate OpenGL shaders from Elixir, making 3D shapes using only math.
Seems like there's been some work around shaders in the Elixir space. I forget who else was, but those tweets have flown by, so they're not committed to memory.
No memory.
There are so many things that I have to keep. My brain only has so many slots. They're currently full.
That's engineering life, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned Burrito. How's it going? You want to, for the audience, just kind of overview that for us?
What it is.
Yeah, Burrito
Other than making me hungry.
I swear it's not my life goal.
I don't believe you.
To make you hungry.
I think it is.
I started Burrito back at my last job when I was actually working with Quinn. We had the requirement to package up our Elixir application that was originally a Phoenix app into a command line tool that people could run on their Macs or on their Windows VMs or just really hostile environments that don't have internet access. And that's a really tough challenge. Some of them you can't install Erlang. So like eScripts are out because you need Erlang installed, and regular releases are out because you would need both Elixir and Erlang installed. And so Burrito was this answer to how the heck are we going to deploy an Elixir application in an environment with no ability to install Erlang or Elixir or any of the dependencies required to run anything.
No Docker even.
No Docker, nothing. We're talking Windows, like Windows Server 2012 R2, no administrator permissions, running off of a network drive. Like the most hostile environment a program could run from.
Easy mode.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a fun talk tomorrow, trust me.
Stay tuned.
Yes. Burrito was a way it was heavily inspired by Bakeware, funny enough, written by Frank and John and Connor, who I work with two of those people now at SmartRent. And it's basically our own take on Bakeware, where we take the entire mix release and we pack it up and we compile a little wrapper binary for whatever platform you're targeting. So like a Mac, you have like a Mako for Mac OS, or a PE executable for Windows, or an ELF executable for Linux. And we just kind of compress that as tight as we can, and then that's the output. And then when you run on a target machine, that one little single binary file, it will uncompress the payload into some writable location and then execute it behind the scenes. So it feels, runs, and acts like a single file binary, but it's actually a big payload of Erlang and Elixir and all your Beam code in disguise. And it's usually around 8 megabytes or so a little larger than most binaries, but still lets you kind of take the portability of the Beam.
It's Elixir. It's all those dependencies in a trench coat, basically. Is what you're saying.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, when you started talking about it, before you mentioned that it was like inspired by Frank and all, I was thinking that it does sound to me a little bit, when we were playing around with the Nerves live book, it did remind me of that. That's what it felt like. Mm-hmm. We were like loading the program onto the memory card that was on the Pi and everything.
Yeah, it's like a similar process where you kind of have this build step in your mix release and it just like packs everything up. Nerves kind of does a similar thing where it inserts itself into mix release and it builds an SD card image of OTP, the release for Erlang, and all your Beam code into the Linux kernel that it needs to run, spits out an image, and then you can write that to an SD card. Similarly, Burrito spits out just an executable for whatever platform. But the key thing that Burrito did that was separate from Bakeware was if you're on Linux, you can actually just target Windows or Mac OS without setting up anything. And so you can cross-compile to any platform from basically any of the other platforms. Mac can compile for Linux and Windows. We don't have super official support for the Windows host build yet, but theoretically, and I've had some people in the community do this and show me that it works, which is pretty impressive, you can compile from Windows to Mac and Linux, or from Linux to Mac and Windows, and just cross all of the options and all. It's really cool. Yeah, it's very cool. I wanted a really turnkey solution for us because we only had access to a Linux CI machine at that job at the time. And so we needed to be able to build Mac OS binaries from Linux, which is not always easy and usually involves legal gray areas. But because the language we used for the wrapper, which is Zig, it can just cross-compile to anything because it uses LLVM in the back end as its compiler. And so it can just target any of those.
How long has Burrito been out now?
Oh, it's been open sourced for maybe 5 months or so, maybe 5-6 months.
I was going to say, it's been making me hungry for at least half a year.
Right. I was going to say around ElixirConf is what I think I started hearing about it.
Yeah, so I was talking about it behind the scenes at ElixirConf. It didn't have a name yet, and it wasn't open sourced. I had to go through a ton of red tape at that company because they were not open source acclimated, and it was a big pain. Shout out to Quinn, who was my manager at the time, who kind of led the charge and got that really done. By the time Burrito got out, I was already kind of going to be transitioning over to SmartRent, and then Frank was super friendly and basically said hey, you can continue working on Burrito. It's a great thing for the community. And he was super fun. And he said, I'm super glad you made that because I didn't want to really maintain Bakeware anymore.
Right. You saved a lot of people, a lot of it. Have you heard of people using Burrito out in the wild since it's been released?
Yeah, I have. I've had a few people.
Examples you can talk about.
I got approached by, I can look it up while I mention another one, but I've had somebody who reached out today recently about an issue where they're trying to make something that does VPN, like a VPN software written in Elixir so that they can just kind of ship their program for their startup. And I would love to pull it up. Give me
Elixir for networking. Interesting.
Yeah. Wow. What a concept.
Never would have thought it. Novel idea.
Cross-platform Elixir apps.
Cross-platform. Look, I love Elixir. I know we all like to write web apps in Elixir,
right?
But I really like to use Elixir for other things too.
Yeah.
And I
for
think
backends.
I think that it's a very useful language.
Yeah, that's something that I think it comes up for me a lot is what else is there aside from the web apps that we've seen, Yeah,
that's why I love hearing about what Frank is up to and just generally speaking what the Nerves community is up to. I will say right now, it's the Nerves team is holed up in Park City working on something. It just feels like they're building something amazing. And I feel like that little kid in The Incredibles that's waiting on the driveway. And Mr. Incredible is like, what are you waiting for? And he's like, something amazing, I guess. That's what I feel like because they're 40 minutes away in Park City right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm just waiting for something amazing, I guess.
Oh, I have the name of the startup, Firezone HQ on Twitter. They're doing VPN and firewall for Linux, and they were looking for ways to distribute it. And they had reached out and said, we really like your project. We're considering using it. It would be cool to see this be out in the wild. And of course, my last company is using it in production every day, basically. And I talked to some of my old coworkers, and they say, yeah, we're still using it. And they're still going to be modifying and contributing to it every now and then. And so it's just really cool. I made it because we needed a solution, and then I realized, this is going to be really useful for other people because I want this outside of my company. And, I like to make tools for people to make the things that they want to make. So
yeah, for sure. You're doing service. Thank you. Right. You mentioned that there are other things you like to do with Elixir other than web apps, other than what we've talked about so far. Is there anything you haven't mentioned yet that you like using Elixir for?
Oh, binary pattern matching is, using gaming terms, it's busted. And by that, I mean it's super powerful.
I would not have thought that busted meant super powerful.
It means overpowered, basically.
Oh, okay.
It's binary pattern matching. I've used binary pattern matching to do all sorts of crazy things, taking apart game archive files, reverse engineering stuff. Super fun. Every other language it's such a pain to try and keep track of the byte offset, and you're messing with pointers in C. Python is usually a go-to, but binary pattern matching in Elixir just it feels super elegant to write binary file processing in Elixir. I hope more people do that because I think it's super powerful. In fact, I told one of my friends about it, and then he started looking into it, and he's like, wow, this is really good. So look more into binary pattern matching. I think it's really overlooked a lot.
I've kind of dipped into the waters of binary pattern matching on when I've had to. And yeah, I was kind of intimidated at first. And then once I started to kind of actually try it out and start practicing with it and stuff, I was like, okay, I can see this being useful.
Yeah, I go from looking at a table that describes a binary file format to a working thing that can take apart the information out of the binary file in fractions of the time it would have taken me in other languages. It's super great.
It just makes me wish that everybody had, I don't know, a live book snippet of their favorite code. We all just submitted it to one place. It's everyone's top hits.
Watch Elixir do this.
We need a live book social network where you share your snippets and you can run them in the browser.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Just let people upload code to your server. It's great.
Read-only doesn't run? I don't know. I have no solutions for this.
Sandboxing
Jose, if you're listening, I'm
processes, I
so
don't know.
sorry. Or maybe not Jose, who's it? Jonathan. Yeah, so sorry for this terrible idea. I don't know, but I've always thought Livebook is a really cool tool for learning. And I'm trying to picture what you're talking about right now, and I can't because I've been writing Flutter for the last year. I would love to see it. And in my head, the blank spot where the code would go is in a live book space around it.
You won't have to wait too long because that code is in tomorrow's talk.
Okay. That is what I want. That is what I want. Instant gratification. The world has trained me for this moment.
Don't gotta wait too long.
The other side project that I've heard about and is also interesting is macaroons.
Oh, yeah.
This is another Elixir project.
That makes me hungry.
Yeah, we're snack round now.
Yes.
I've also
The
recently
first one that made
discovered
me
the
hungry.
magic of actual macaroons.
What? What?
Recently? This year I became a macaroon guy. That's my go-to snack.
They're so tasty.
Wait.
But I only
Okay,
eat,
so
like once a week.
the pronunciation for the different cookies are you talking about the almond flour colorful cookies or the
colorful ones, yes.
Okay. Is that actually pronounced?
They're both pronounced macaroon. They're spelled differently. The paper uses the wrong spelling. They're called the wrong one. The actual security-based macaroons. They're the wrong one for the image that everybody uses for them. So it's a little backwards. It's spelled as if they're the ones that are just like the lumps with the almonds inside of them, like just the pile of nuts. But they use the colorful French macaroons as the icon, which is not the right spelling. I don't know.
I thought the colorful French ones were called macarons. I thought that's what.
I
kept saying that too, and I kept getting corrected by people. Like not even at bakeries, I'd be like, I'm trying to find macaroon or macarons because I guess like the president of France
macaroons?
Also got me mixed up on that. So they're like, no, it's macaroons. I'm like, okay, where are they?
I mean, truly, they're both delightful, and
Yes.
we are definitely on subject right now.
So, yes, and now, all right, before I run out of this room to go find the nearest pastry shop.
I know where the nearest pastry shop is, by
course.
the way.
All right, change of plans. Let's record there.
Okay.
But tell us about the Elixir version of macaroons.
Yeah.
Doused in Elixir alcohol, I guess. Something simple.
Implementing macaroons in Elixir was just a small little side project I decided to do that turned into my first talk, which was on the Elixir Wizards conference, which was really fun. And it's been pretty low maintenance. Actually, Amos came to me the other day and was like, I see it. He's like, I connected in my head. I understand why macaroons is the way to go for certain things. And I was just enthralled by the fact that you could have something other than just a token as an authorization concept, because that I didn't know that was a thing that you could just encode. Like, yeah, we have JWTs, but those have so many, I'm going to say foot guns, where you can just injure yourself by setting alg none or something like that.
Oh my goodness.
And it's not great. I think not a month goes by that I read that a security vulnerability or there's been an exploit or like a disclosure because someone set up JWTs incorrectly, setting algorithm to none or not checking the validation at all or any number of these things. And so being able to say, oh, there's an alternative, and for some reason nobody's using it, was really frustrating to me because I read the paper. Like, these are literally the perfect replacement for something like a JWT. Why is no one using them? And so I decided, well, I'll just implement it in Elixir. I know the Elixir community is ravenous and excited, and I love everything about it. So I'm just going to throw it out into the Elixir community, and maybe someone will use it.
What are some use cases? I think it was Amos talking about using it for like file sharing.
Yeah. So
that was an interesting one.
I usually tend to say, think about macaroon authorization as like a resource-oriented access. So like a file. If you have a file and you want to allow someone to read and write, then you can make a macaroon that says they can read and write. And then if that person who's holding the macaroon wants to give it to someone else, like how GitHub, like you authorize with GitHub, log in with GitHub, and it's like, this app wants to read your profile. You can add another little caveat to the macaroon that you already have that says read write, and you can throw on another thing that says actually only read for this time to this time, and then give that to your friend. And now they have guaranteed only the access you've given them, and you don't have to talk to the server at all.
Okay, I've got gears turning right now because I'm thinking about the app I've been working on, my side project. And I'm like,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, side project.
Side project.
I was about to make noise if you're talking about a work project.
No, side project. I'm like, okay, like limited time access. Mm-hmm. Like my use case would not be file sharing, I don't think, but like limited time access to like an application or like a zone in an application or something.
Yeah, exactly. I also bring up the concept of family sharing in certain applications. Steam, the game platform, has the idea of where you can authorize a friend's computer or family computer to like share your game library. You could instead mint a macaroon that says like, you can use this game from this time to this time. And then even if your friend like spills the beans and gives your token to someone else, they only have the scoped permissions that you gave them. So it's not like you're giving them full access. You're giving them a really scoped down access. And then if they want to scope that access down even further, they have to work in that like sub-scope you've already given them. So it's like a hierarchy of permissions.
Does the recipient need an account? Like, is it tied to an account, or is it just like a...
It can be, but no, it's just authorization. Authentication is something else. So auth-n, you'd use a token for a session, but the authorization you could use the macaroons for.
Speaking of same side project, I've been setting up WebAuthn over LiveView.
Yeah.
And that was not documented.
Oh, no.
That's been like, so I'm using the Wax package, which helped me a lot. There are a couple of other alternatives.
Yep.
Not quite as documented as that one. But like it was, the examples were for like a traditional controller.
Yep.
So I had to kind of like shift the mindset to like make it work over WebSockets and figure out like where to store it, the challenge. So now that's living in the process memory. And now I think I need to have someone like Digit take a quick look at the security just to make sure I'm not like
now
setting authentication to none.
Everybody knows what happens when we stop recording.
Right.
The laptop's out.
I'm super glad that you're using Wax and figuring this out, because one time I wanted to do this and I decided that I didn't want to invest my time in figuring out how to make it work over LiveView. So whenever you're done with that, you should publish that.
Yes, that's the one thing I want to open source next.
Excellent.
Or like probably first is like, once I get this working, like abstract it out from the app a little bit, and then...
Yeah, please. I would totally use that.
Because it's so great. So if you haven't ever heard of WebAuthn, so the way I'm setting it up on my app is I'm going to collect the user's email address, and they're going to set a username, the email, so I can send them, if they need support later on, and then username so they can talk to each other within the app. And then whenever they hit register or sign up, they'll press Touch ID, Face ID, or a USB security key. They won't ever have to create a password. They will never have to reset a password.
That's the way to do it.
And that password can never be breached because like the application will receive a public key that is useless without the secret on that person's device.
Right. I love my YubiKey security keys. I use them all the time. I want more things to support it. So yeah, definitely publish this because I want more people to start doing passwordless authentication. It's way more secure.
All right. If it's not published, let's say by the end of the year,
I'll yell at you.
Yeah. Track me down.
Okay.
So yeah, I think there's some tie-in with I need to revisit the Macaroon project and kind of
because you already have the authorization.
Right.
If you need, you already have the authentication. If you want the authorization, you could use something like a JWT, or you could be cool and use a Macaroon, or you could be even cooler and use a biscuit. But nobody's implemented biscuits in Elixir yet.
More foods. Sunday, what you got?
I don't actually think we have time to talk about biscuits because all of us have got a speaker dinner to go to. So it's just so weird because we're beholden to a clock where we're all in one, the same time zone.
Mm-hmm.
And two, we actually have we always had things to do.
Obligations, but there are physical people waiting a few miles away, I think.
Yeah, which is just such a weird concept.
We got time.
Yeah, we have half an hour.
Okay. In 2 minutes or less, what is a biscuit?
We can make a fashionable late entry.
It's basically a macaroon, but there's data log inside it.
Okay. Why do you think no one's used it yet?
They're fairly new.
Okay.
But
how new? 6 months or?
Not 6 months, past few years. But I love the concept of them. And if you want to talk about data log, talk to Quinn about data log.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
she's
we're just going
always
to pull
tweeting about
Quinn
Datalog.
out of our back pocket.
Right.
It's just magically
She's
appear.
literally like a floor down, I'm pretty sure. So we could
Quinn,
Probably.
could just yell down the hallway.
The joys of actually being in the physical space and
crazy.
doing the thing. Do you want to give you the floor for any shout outs or plugs that you may want to talk about?
Oh, interesting.
Or hot takes. We skipped hot takes today.
Hot takes. I don't know. My hottest take on Elixir is that don't just build web apps with it.
That's fair. It doesn't
And,
have to be an Elixir hot take, but that's a good hot take.
Yeah. I guess my other hot take would be like, just in general for engineering, like, don't behold yourself to like the agile philosophy, like strictly, have a Kanban board, but that's where I find anything more than that, I find becomes useless to me.
Fair. It's a really good thing for people to explore. And I think people are actually exploring right now. So
Good.
For sure. Owen, do you have anything else that you want to?
I mean, we could talk. So the speakers dinner tonight, we're going to be talking, I'm sure, about authorization and happy hour. This is just going to keep going and going.
But the audience will not get to hear that. But you did get a taste of this particular conversation now for everyone listening who is or was, I guess, was in past tense at EMPEX. I hope we got a chance to chat with you. And if not, I hope you got to feel like you were here with us.
And this is the best part about going to a conference. Like, yes, you're going to see some talks. Those are also going to be online. But it's all of the in-person conversations that you have that you can kind of have over Slack. You can kind of have over Zoom.
You can definitely have in Toucan.
You can have them in Toucan. But yeah, just in person, there's something, I don't know, it's just easier to kind of capture the excitement. And those after hours parties can go to like 1 or 2 o'clock just because everyone's like hyped up on
Elixir.
Elixir.
Various
Elixir.
Yes. Yeah. Where can people find you or find info on your GitHub or anything or Twitter?
If you ever need to find me, I'm on Twitter and on GitHub under the username @doawoo, DOAWOO. It's a pun on don't awoo. I'll show you the image later if you haven't seen it.
Okay.
There's also my website, which you can find, which is puppy.surf.
Amazing. That is not
puppy.surf.
Impossible to remember. So kudos to that. Great. Well, that's it for today's super special episode of a live recording of Elixir Wizards. Thanks again to our guest Digit for joining us. I'm Sundie Myint, and my co-host is Owen Bickford. Our executive producer is Rose Burt. Elixir Wizards is a SmartLogic production. Here at SmartLogic, we build custom web and mobile software. We work in Elixir, Rails, React, Flutter, and more. Need a piece of custom software built? Hit us up. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. Your reviews help us reach new listeners. You can find us on Twitter at SmartLogic or join the Elixir Wizards Discord. The link is on the podcast page. And see you next week for more on Elixir in a polyglot environment.